What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So yesterday, a certain Switch game leaked out early, which shouldn't be surprising because big releases on the platform seem to leak out every single time ahead of release. This one, though, is from a third party, and it gives us our first indication as to how the next $70 game on the system is running. We'll go over that here today. Also, we are going to be talking about Take-Two and Rockstar and how they've been accused of selling their own games that are pirated versions of them on Steam. And we'll also be talking about the future of The Legend of Zelda as Mr. Aonuma spoke on plans for downloadable content and even interesting strategy and direction for the series going forward. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button, helps out a ton. And if new here to the Spawnwave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. We're gonna start today with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem, which is a movie that came out months ago and people seem to get a kick out of. At least the audience reception was pretty good after it hit theaters and people had a chance to check it out. I have not seen it yet. I guess when it's on streaming platforms, I'll check it out then. But one thing's for sure, you figure a game of some kind would follow up a successful movie, and in this case, it looks like that will be happening, and we can see this posted up over on Nintendo Life with a nice key art shot of what's gonna be, I guess, the game. See, we don't have any kind of in-game screenshots or a trailer, nothing like that. Apparently, this is just a game inspired by Mutant Mayhem, and it's from Outright Games. We'll discuss them in a second here, but it says, taking place months after the events of the movie, the game will feature unique visuals inspired by the film's bold, painterly art style. Combining energetic ninja teamwork, gameplay with a humorous narrative, players will take control of the Turtles as they interact with a host of memorable characters from the franchise and fight to save the stylized take on New York City from a new mutant threat. Outright Games is probably a developer that you're going to want to pare back some of your expectations as to what this game could be. While I'm sure they could put together a competent game, it's going to be geared more towards a younger audience based on their library of titles, which includes things like Peppa Pig, Bluey, PJ Masks, Paw Patrol. You kind of get the idea there. But we've seen like Shredder's Revenge do very well. I think Mutant Mayhem, a game around that, could also do well. But this is slated apparently for next year, so I guess we'll keep an eye out for that first trailer. Also, with Starfield now out, Todd Howard is making the rounds in different interviews, and he's now turning his attention to next year for that Indiana Jones game that was revealed in a very quick fashion. Not much to go on with the trailer years and years ago, but it looks like they're ready to talk next year. This is in an interview you can see here with Todd Howard and Esquire, where he says, "I am a giant Indiana Jones fan. It can be brought to video games in a unique way. The game is obviously you're exploring stuff." Oh, there you go. It's about him. So if you're playing the game, how do you feel that you were indeed playing versus just watching? And when asked to press further, he said, "We'll talk next year." I am curious how this game is going to turn out because it's from Machine Games, for the Wolfenstein series. So with that in mind, I have wondered if it's going to be first person or third person. I feel like it's going to be third person, right? But I'm also curious, as he mentioned here, how do you make it feel like you're playing the game and it all flows together nicely? Because we've had Indiana Jones games in the past. They haven't been very good, so here's hoping they can pull it off here with Bethesda and Machine Games. But it sounds like we're going to find out more, I assume next year, maybe around that E3 time period over the summer, and we can get our first look at it. Oh, and we've talked about game file sizes quite a bit because originally with this generation, we thought they might go down. It appears like they just keep going up. For example, NBA 2K24, which we can see this screenshot that was shared up over on the subreddit. Yeah, the Xbox version's coming in at 161.4 gigabytes. Yeah, but not really going in the right direction for this. I mean, even you think about the 1 terabyte drive that you have in that Xbox Series X, and even that is starting to feel inadequate at this point with some of these 160 some odd gigabyte games. Talk about Jedi Survivor being like 140 something. It's getting out of control here to where, yeah, we're going to start needing 2 terabyte, 4 terabyte systems shipping out the door. And maybe that is a revision Microsoft does, a 2 terabyte Xbox Series X. Maybe with Sony, their PS5 Pro, it's the same thing just with 2 terabytes. So we're just getting to that point where these file sizes are getting out of control, and the storage sizes we have now with these systems, not really cutting it as much. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with a certain game that has leaked out early on the Switch. This shouldn't surprise anyone, as every single game seems to leak out early for the Switch. Even the Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom leaked out way early. But third parties, I'm sure, are a bit more frustrated than even Nintendo, because they're also releasing on other systems, and they like to control the marketing as much as possible. This is a very good example of that, as Mortal Kombat 1 appeared to have found its way out of the back of a warehouse or off the truck or something, I don't know, but somehow somebody has come away with a copy of the game. And interestingly enough, and still waiting to see if there's any more information around this, because I have looked at the box art and stuff for the Switch version. I guess there isn't a large download attached to that cartridge, because that was the case for Mortal Kombat 11. You still had to download a good portion of that game, but on the box art, they don't have the internet required or download required badge or anything, so maybe it really is all in that cartridge, and maybe that is a way that they can justify the $70 price tag. Remember, some of these games are going up in price even on the Switch for third parties after what we saw with Tears of the Kingdom coming out at that $70 mark. But if we take a look here, this over on VGC, as they did transcribe some of the stuff from that Reddit post that was pulled down, actually, seemingly from WB. This from the person who says, I have an early copy I would avoid on Switch, as the performance isn't up to par for a $70 game. Lots of lag whenever there is a lot of screen movement. This strange, persistent screen glitch that tears the middle of the screen is the most jarring thing. So they also shared images of them playing the game, which also had the character select screen that is probably the main thing that got struck down by WB, as again, they're trying to control the marketing as they go along with character reveals and cameos, that sort of thing. But in this case, it sounds very similar to Mortal Kombat 11. That had some screen tearing, and I know the visuals were made fun of quite a bit because some of the fatalities looked weird. I think at the crypt they were just missing the moon or something. So not the best version of the game to go to if you have options. However, as we all know, the Switch plays off of the convenience factor of being a hybrid device. So for me, when I look at the Switch version of Mortal Kombat 11 or soon to be Mortal Kombat 1, I kind of think of that Vita version of Mortal Kombat 9. Didn't look anywhere as good, like even close to what we had on like the Xbox 360 or the PS3, but it ran fairly well and gave you that experience on the go. That's, again, what I'm kind of looking to the Switch for, but it kind of makes sense from WB's point that they wouldn't even want any kind of footage out around this, because it's not exactly the best version to put in front of people. They'd prefer to put maybe the PS5 version, since that is like the lead platform for many of these different publishers and developers with third party in mind, or just put it on a PC with the best video card and CPU and stuff you can, just max out the visuals. Although I guess you could also point out that that's not great when it comes to transparency for a game like Mortal Kombat 1, that people in the first place were even surprised to go to the Switch. Kind of want to see it before you plop down $70 for it. And even so, there will be an early access period. So if you're not getting like the premium or any of those kind of editions that cost more but get you in 5 days early, technically you could check it out on stream and stuff and see how it turns out, as I'm sure people will be buying in early on the Switch just to do benchmarks and check out how it runs and how it looks. So I guess keep an eye out for that one, and also keep an eye out for spoilers, because yes, Mortal Kombat 1 has leaked, and I'm sure you'll be seeing more and more information get out there around secret characters and all kinds of stuff. Next up, let's talk about The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, and apparently Nintendo's plans going into the future, because Tears of the Kingdom will not be getting downloadable content, which certainly surprised a lot of people online yesterday, but this was in an interview with Famitsu and Mr. Aonuma. We can see this posted up. This over on Eurogamer says, there are no plans to release additional content this time, but that's because I feel like I've done everything I can to create games in that world, which, I mean, technically they use the same like base map and all that. I know they put stuff like the underground part, they put stuff in the sky, but like the base map itself, yeah, it was still the same. Say, in the first place, the reason why we chose this time as a sequel to the previous game is because we thought there would be value in experiencing a new kind of play in that place in Hyrule. Then, if such a reason is newly born, it may return to the same world again. Whether it's a sequel or a new work, I think it will be a completely new way to play. So I'd be happy if you could look forward to it. So I am curious what direction they take in terms of the gameplay, because I do think it's hard for them to get away from the open world concept, considering it's sold really well with Breath of the Wild and it's selling really well with Tears of the Kingdom. So that seems to be the obvious path forward for them. But so I think we'll still see that. But I do wonder if they will continue to build on it with different ideas. I mean, think of what we had with sort of the building mechanics in Tears of the Kingdom. Can they either do more with that or just go in a completely different direction and include some new gameplay element that we're not even thinking of? I didn't go into Tears of the Kingdom thinking we would be able to build all kinds of crazy contraptions and stuff with the physics that they were able to actually introduce there, but here we are with this game out there and working really, really well, which is, again, the most shocking part of that game, that just explode after like 5 or 10 minutes of you just kind of messing around with Ultra Hand. I would like to see them tackle the issue, though, when it comes to dungeons feeling more like traditional dungeons, whereas they at least dressed it up a bit more in Tears of the Kingdom. But it still felt like it didn't have that flow of the more linear setups for dungeons. Yeah, there were still different things you could do in the dungeons, but they had a set path. They had like a weapon or an aha moment that you'd have while you're in the dungeon, then you go back, use it on the boss, and go from there, right? I'd like to see them try to work that into the open world concept and maybe revise the entire way that we see an open world in general, but that is the most curious part now, is where do they go from here, because seems like they are done with Tears of the Kingdom, which from a business side, it sounds crazy, but hey, they're still selling Tears of the Kingdom, so I don't think they're exactly hurting for money for the Zelda team at this time. So I guess we'll look forward to their next generation device and what they could accomplish there after what we saw them do on the Switch. Next up, let's talk about Take-Two and Rockstar, as they were trending all over the place the other day because people were talking about them selling pirated versions of their own games from the past on Steam. And this seems to go back to like 2008, 2009, when they brought a bunch of their games over. Think of Manhunt, Midnight Club, and a few others. And apparently the way they did that was by sourcing cracks that people were using online to essentially circumvent CD checks and, yeah, basically pirate the game. Now, this seemed to stem from a video that was posted up, which you can see the title and some of the video here. This is from Vodom, and it's Manhunt Hidden Anti-Piracy Measures, and I fully recommend checking this out. It's like 53 minutes. It is very interesting to see all the different things that Manhunt would do outside of just block you from, like, okay, if you don't have your CD key, you're not installing this. You know, even if you got past that, it would still do different things in the game to kind of mess with you and just stop your progress altogether. So it was basically a bunch of checks that existed in the game that, if it started to figure out that you cracked the game itself, would implement. So the way it seemed to work with some of these CD cracks that you may remember from way back in the day, because they would have like sometimes music attached to it, all kinds of weird animations and backgrounds. But basically the game would be cracked without it knowing that it was cracked. So it didn't have to do any of these weird DRM implementations or anything. It just went about business as usual. However, instead of, I guess, making their own CD crack or something to get around these issues when they were moving to sell them on Steam, which of course would not use a CD or any of that, they decided, which you can see here from Crackwatch, who says, Rockstar is selling cracked game copies on Steam with Razor 1911 underlined here. Now, apparently this does exist in a couple of their Steam games, like Manhunt being one. You also have Midnight Club 2. Now, Midnight Club 2 was delisted. I believe Max Payne was also thrown in there, but some of these games like Midnight Club 2 was delisted. You can still find it online if you actually want to buy a legitimate copy, but it's not as easy as just going to Steam or something like that. So clearly people would probably just download it and crack it with something like this. But it's a bit odd that you would have Take-Two and Rockstar go about it this way, because, I mean, the irony's not lost on the internet. They love to just strike down different mods, communities, all kinds of things that get done online. And yeah, sometimes even programs like these that circumvent it. And it is a constant struggle for people online who like the games that Take-Two and Rockstar put out and try to do their own spin on modifications, and Rockstar and Take-Two just breaking things out in the courtroom. Now, it is important to note that the games that are being pointed out here don't actually use these cracked versions any longer. Like Manhunt, from what I saw on Steam, doesn't even work on Windows Vista or 7 or anything there. And it seems that those EXEs that were being used, they're still there, but they've basically been pushed off to the side and renamed and all this. It's just pretty funny that it was Take-Two and Rockstar who were off downloading apparently cracked versions of the games and then listing them on Steam for sale. Again, the irony, not really lost online. Also, I saw some people bring up the legal implications around this. Oh, you have Take-Two or Rockstar selling technically code that people created online to get around the CD checks. So would they get in trouble for that? Probably not, and even if they could, I don't think anyone wants to pay to find out, because then I assume Take-Two and Rockstar would immediately swing really, really hard with their own lawyers and say, well, you're the ones who created the crack for this. Why were you doing that in the first place? To circumvent, now let's spend the next couple of years in court. I don't think that's happening. I don't think anyone wants that to happen. It's just something to look back on in history and kind of point and laugh at Take-Two and Rockstar for well, the irony, again, that's not lost on the internet. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about that Nintendo Switch Online update. This is for the Nintendo, Super Nintendo, and Game Boy. So there's a nice little variety of titles getting thrown in that are available right now, and we can see this posted up over on their Twitter account for Nintendo of America. With a nice little trailer here, too. Let's see, Super Nintendo has Kirby's Star Stacker, which I guess is like Dr. Robotnik's Mean Beam Machine, Puyo Puyo Tetris kind of set up there for Kirby. Hasn't been translated or anything, still in Japanese, so you can kind of navigate the menus as best you can to get into the game. Then for the original Nintendo, we have Joy Mech Fight and Downtown Niketsu March Super Awesome Field Day. All right. And for Game Boy Color, we have Quest for Camelot, which I never played this game, but then I saw it in the trailer and it looked familiar for some reason. And maybe that's just because it looks kind of like a Zelda-style game with that isometric look, action-adventure. But like I said, not bad. Nothing really crazy to write home about, but at least they are still updating the Super Nintendo, Game Boy applications as those updates have become fewer and fewer now, with obviously the big focus being on Nintendo 64, Game Boy Advance, and all of this. But for that side, they're kind of running out of titles, or I guess on the Game Boy side, they kind of have. But if they just show up spontaneously with things like Quest for Camelot, there's at least some more intrigue there as to what could be coming up next. So, hey, not a bad update. Go check it out on the NSO app now as they are available. And before we go to the comment of the day, we're going to take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I ask, are you picking up Mortal Kombat 1? Okay, so 60% are just not interested at all. But then we have 29% say yes, but later when it goes on sale, and then 11% say yes, buying it ASAP. And I'm sure many of the 11% will probably be in early access because they're probably big fans of Mortal Kombat, want to get in right away. But I mean, the people who are waiting for it to go on sale, Mortal Kombat 11's been on sale for what, like $8 many times, but like 90% off on the Switch multiple times, I think in this last year. So I don't really blame people for holding out and waiting, but I am interested in Mortal Kombat 1. The idea of them, I mean, basically rebooting the whole thing, and then also seeing the downloadable characters or the DLC they're going to do going forward with Homelander and Omni-Man, I have to see that in action. Okay, I just do. But to see the story play out again and some of the different, different takes that they're doing with the characters, and could be a pretty cool story that they're lining up. So at least that part I'm very interested in. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Wright, who says, Game Pass also has Payday 3 this month, guys. Great month for it. Insane value, really, assuming you can finish all these games quickly. Well, Payday 3 is a game that's going to be played like consistently over the course of several years. Payday 2, if it was a better experience on the Xbox, I think the community would be larger there. They didn't really do much when it comes to frame rate, resolution, nothing. Like if they had FPS boost and at least smoothed it out somewhat through upscaling and stuff, I think I would probably check it out again. It's just very rough. So seeing Payday 3 and checking it out in closed beta it was enjoyable. In fact, there is an open beta actually this weekend as well. If you just want to try it out, it's the same heist at like the bank that you would run over and over again in closed beta. So if you did that, you wouldn't be missing much this weekend. But I am looking forward to that. I think they're going to do an update with probably some other titles around it, as that would fall into sort of their second half update for September. But you're right, a lot of stuff hitting Game Pass in September. It's exciting times. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. Was Mortal Kombat 1 leaking out early, of course, on the Switch. Let me know if you're picking it up, though, later this month. And then also, what about the future for The Legend of Zelda? Do you think they continue to build on this open world concept, or do they go in a completely different direction? And what about Rockstar and Take-Two getting caught selling pirated games on Steam? Do you remember those old CD key programs that would play all kinds of music and stuff? Let me know about that. Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.